Her father tried to sell her to a saloon keeper in front of the whole town, so she sent a secret Apache rescue signal nobody else on Earth even knew existed. The sun over Dry Creek fell like a hammer, flattening the dusty street, the warped storefronts, the faces all turned toward the rough plank platform outside the Golden Ace Saloon. Horses sweated in the hitching rail's thin strip of shade. A fly crawled across Clara Mae Thompson's cheek, and she didn't even brush it away. "Step up where they can see you," her father barked. Elias Thompson's fingers dug into her arm as he shoved her forward. Clara stumbled, the boards creaking under her weight. Her good blue dress dug into her ribs, too tight under the arms, too tight across her belly. Sweat glued the fabric to her skin. "This here is my daughter," Elias announced, turning to face the small crowd. "Clara Mae, 23. Strong as an ox, eats like one too." He gave a brittle chuckle. "She'll work hard for the man who takes her, one way or another." Laughter, thin and mean, rippled through the men clustered below. A pair of soldiers from the fort leaned on a post, arms folded, their faces unreadable. A woman in a gray dress looked away. The pastor stared at his boots. Miles Kincaid stepped out of the saloon's shadow. The dust of Arizona had dulled his black suit, but he still wore it like he thought the whole territory belonged to him. Pale eyes ran over Clara, slow and assessing, as if he were checking a horse's teeth. "You're certain she understands?" he asked Elias. "No sheriff trouble later?" "She understands," Elias said. "She knows the position she's put us in." "I don't," Clara began. "Be quiet, girl." Her father's voice cracked like a whip. "If you hadn't scared off every decent man in 3 counties with that smart mouth and all this," he flung a hand at her body, "we wouldn't be here." Heat burned the back of her neck. She stared at the far end of the street so she wouldn't have to see the smirks and pity. Kincaid smiled thinly. "I'm a generous man, Thompson. I'll clear your debts." His gaze slid back to her, lingering on her chest, her hips. "She'll earn it." The lawyer, a man with a vest and a self-important mustache, laid a paper on an upturned crate. "Sign here, Miss Thompson," he said briskly. "It's all proper. Contract of employment and companionship." Companionship. The word tasted rotten. Her father grabbed her wrist and shoved a pen into her hand. "You put your name down, Clara Mae. It's the least you can do after all the trouble." The world blurred. She heard the murmur of the crowd, the creak of a swinging sign, the dry flap of the fort's flag, but it all sounded far away. She looked for anyone who might help. The pastor kept staring at his shoes. The women turned their faces. The soldiers didn't move. There was no one, except once there had been. Beyond the town, beyond the fort's low walls, red ridges cut the sky. For a heartbeat, the heat shimmer became something else. A boy's face, dark with dust and blood, his eyes steady on hers in the lantern light behind the barn. 7 years ago. Her fingers trembled. Slowly, as if just adjusting her shawl, she reached for the upright post of the platform. The cloth was thin, worn from years of use, but she found one sound corner. Around, over, through, twist, pull. Not a normal knot. Not the way her father tied a rope. An odd, intricate pattern no one in Dry Creek would think twice about. She tightened it with a tiny jerk, then let her other hand fall at her side. Her fingers brushed her skirt twice and curled in, thumb pressing against 2 middle fingers, little finger and index crooked. A signal nobody in town understood. A signal an Apache boy had put in her palm when she was 16, and foolish enough to think kindness didn't matter. "If you are ever in danger," he'd whispered, "and you can do this, I will come if I can, or someone who owes me will come." It had sounded like a story, a promise meant for another world. "Miss Thompson," the lawyer snapped, "we don't have all day." Her name scratched onto the paper, ink blurring where a tear fell. The lawyer snatched it up in satisfaction. Kincaid's grip closed around her other wrist, hot and possessive. "Welcome to the Golden Ace, sweetheart," he murmured. "Lieutenant," one of the soldiers said quietly. "Rider on the ridge." Clara's heart lurched. She looked up, high above town, at the notch between 2 red hills. A small dark speck sat against the sky. For a moment she thought it was her own hope playing tricks on her. Then sunlight flashed on metal, and she saw the outline of a horse and rider, still as carved stone. The fort's lieutenant shaded his eyes. "Could be nothing," he said. "Could be Apache." Her father snorted. "They know better than to come near the fort." Kincaid jerked her down from the platform. "Come along, Clara Mae. We'll get you settled." She stumbled. Her dress caught on a nail and tore. Snickers rose from the boys by the hitching rail. Shame and rage burned hot in her chest. Past them, the rider vanished over the ridge. Years back, the night had been so quiet she heard every creak of the windmill and every soft slosh of water in the trough. She'd stepped outside with a lantern because the milk cow wouldn't stop lowing. Beside the trough, collapsed in the dust, lay what she'd thought was a heap of blankets. Then it moved. The lantern light caught a boy's face. Apache. Skin the color of sun-browned copper, streaked with blood and grime. Black hair pasted to his forehead. A jagged cut tore down his upper arm. His eyes opened, dark and sharp, even through the fever haze. "Water," he croaked. Her father's warning surged up. "If you ever see one of them, you run and get me. You're too big and too slow to run from them yourself." She should have turned, should have screamed. The cow bawled again, anxious. The boy's lips cracked as he whispered, "Please." Clara swore under her breath, set the lantern down, and hauled water from the trough. She knelt beside him, the dust biting into her knees, and held the bucket to his mouth. His hand brushed hers as he drank. Calloused fingers burning hot. "Thank you," he rasped. "You can't stay here," she whispered. "If my father sees you, I'll go," he said. "Need breath first." His gaze flicked toward the house. He shouts loud, easy to hear. "You've been listening?" she hissed. "You shout too," he said simply, "but not like him." The cut on his arm gaped open, crusted with dried blood. Her stomach turned. "You'll bleed out before you make it to the creek." He shrugged. "Maybe." Something in her snapped. "Hold still," she ordered, and tore a strip from an old feed sack hanging in the barn. She wrapped his arm as best she could, fingers fumbling, heart pounding. He hissed when she tied the knot. "Sorry," she whispered. "It's good." His eyes softened. Strong. When he managed to stand, leaning on the trough, he seemed smaller somehow, more boy than monster. He watched her for a long moment. "My name is Maka," he said. "You are Clara Mae Thompson. Your father shouts it often." She flinched. "You've seen me?" "From far," he said. "You move heavy things, he does not see that." She looked down at her broad hands, at the feed sack strip stained with his blood. "You need to go," she said. "If they wake and see the lantern." He nodded, but instead of slipping into the dark, he reached into a leather pouch at his side and drew out a narrow strip of woven cloth. He wrapped it around the trough post, fingers moving quickly. Over, under, twist, pull. A knot she'd never seen. "Our scouts know signs," he said. "This knot this way near White Houses means friend at risk, help." He unwound it, then took her hand and folded her fingers into the odd shape. Thumb pressed to two middle fingers, the others bent. "This," he added. "If you stand where we can see, a call. If I live and can see, I come, or someone who owes me will come. We do not forget life debts." A window creaked open in the house. Her father coughed. "Go," she hissed. "Please." He held her gaze one last moment. "You are strong, Clara Mae," he said quietly. "Do not let his words make you small." Then he slipped into the night. She'd told herself for years it had been a foolish, dangerous thing to do. She'd told herself he was probably dead. She'd told herself no one sane depended on promises made by bleeding boys in the dark. Now, standing in the dust of Dry Creek with a torn dress and a ruined life, she had nothing left but that foolishness. Hoofbeats sounded on hardpan. Kincaid cursed. The lieutenant swore under his breath. "Steady," he warned his men. Out from between the store and the livery came a lone rider, not charging but walking the horse slow, deliberate. He wore no soldier's blue, no rancher's hat. A faded blanket draped his shoulders. A bow and quiver were slung at his side, but his hands rested open on the saddle horn. He swung down from the saddle with easy grace. Dust puffed around his boots. The townsfolk nearest him stepped back as if he carried plague. "Hold there," the lieutenant snapped. "State your business." Maka's face had lost its boyish roundness. Time and weather had carved planes into his cheekbones. A faint scar traced the line where Clara had once wrapped feed sack cloth. His eyes were the same. He looked at her first. Everything else dropped away. The sweat, the dust, the crowd, all blurred. "Clara," he said quietly. Her throat closed. "Maka." Kincaid's fingers dug into her wrist. "You know this redskin?" he hissed. "She saved my life," Maka said, voice carrying. years ago by a broken windmill. Tonight she called for help with a sign my people do not ignore. He touched the knot on the post with gentle fingers. The crowd muttered. Elias barked, "My daughter wouldn't signal a savage." Maka turned his steady gaze on him. "Your daughter does many things you do not deserve," he said. But this was simple. She was drowning. She reached for the only hand that ever pulled her up. Lieutenant Harlan stepped between them, a sweat line darkening his collar. "This is a private arrangement," he said. The lady signed of her own will. Maka's eyes slid to Clara. "Did you?" he asked. Kincaid's grip tightened. "You signed, didn't you, sweetheart?" Clara's heart hammered. She looked at her father's hard mouth, at Kincaid's hungry smirk, at the ink-stained paper under the lawyer's hand. "No," she said, the word coming out a shaky whisper. "I didn't. Not in my will." Elias hissed. "Don't you dare." "I was forced," she said louder. "I thought I had no choice." Maka looked at Harlan. "Your law says a contract made with fear is nothing," he said, "and your eyes have seen enough of this man to know what fear looks like." Maria, the dishwasher from the Golden Ace, stepped forward, clutching her shawl. Bruises yellowed her jaw. "He locks girls upstairs," she blurted. "When they try to leave, he says we owe him forever." Kincaid rounded on her. "You little—" "Shut it," Harlan snapped. He stared at Kincaid for a long, ugly moment. "I've heard talk," he said. "I ignored it. That's on me. But you draw a gun in my street over a woman who clearly doesn't want you, and we'll have more than talk." His boot ground down on the contract. Ink smeared into the dirt. "This deal's off," he said. Elias lurched forward. "You can't," he sputtered. "I owe that man money." "Then you pay it yourself," Harlan said. "You don't sell your own daughter." He turned to Clara. "Miss Thompson, you want to go home with your father? Stay in town? Go somewhere else?" He looked at Maka. "Go with them?" The choice crashed over her like a wave. Home meant walls that had never kept out loneliness. Town meant whispers and Kincaid's glare. The only place she'd been given a choice at all was standing 10 feet away in sun-bleached moccasins. "If I went with—" she started, looking at Maka. "My people," he said. "We are not easy. The land is harder. You will be strange for a time." "I've been strange my whole life," she said. Elias stepped toward her. "Girl, don't you dare. You owe me. After all I've done—" "All you've done is remind me how much you hate the sight of me," she said, voice shaking. "You call me too big, too slow, too much. You gambled away the ranch and tried to pay with me." Kincaid muttered, "Ungrateful hog," under his breath. Maka's jaw clenched. "She is not an animal," he said. "Not a debt, not a punishment. She is Clara Mae, and if she comes with me, it is because she chooses." Clara swallowed. "I want to go," she said. "With him." Kincaid swore. Elias's face went red. Harlan just nodded. "Then that's that," the lieutenant said. "Miss Thompson is free to ride where she likes." Maka stepped to his horse and cupped his hands to help her mount. Her skirts tangled. Her boot slipped. For a heartbeat she thought she'd fall and prove everyone right about her clumsiness. His hands were there. "Steady. I have you," he said quietly. She swung up behind him, awkward but upright. Her arms wrapped around his waist felt strange and right at the same time. "If you ever need the fort," Harlan called, "send word." "Thank you," she said. Her father stared up at her, fury and something like hurt warring in his eyes. "You'll regret this," he spat. "They'll use you up and toss you aside. You're nothing to them." Maka looked back once. "She was nothing to you," he said. "That is different." He clicked his tongue, and the horse moved. Dry Creek slid away behind them in a cloud of dust. The trail into the hills was steep and rocky. The air cooled as they climbed. Clara's thighs ached. She tried to lean back so she wouldn't press too much of her weight against his back. "If I'm too heavy?" "You are exactly as heavy as you are," he said. "The horse can carry us both, so can I." They rode in silence until town shrank to a smudge. The fort's flag disappeared. Only the sky and the ridges remained. "Why did you come?" she asked finally. After all this time, he didn't hesitate. "Because you asked," he said. "Because a girl once ignored her father's hate and gave me water. Because I promised." The hidden valley lay cupped between cliffs, greener than she expected. Smoke curled from low shelters. Children near the creek stopped to stare as they rode in. Women paused in their grinding and sewing. Men straightened, their hands never far from bows and knives. An old woman pushed past them all. Her braids were streaked with gray, her face lined like a dry riverbed, her eyes bright. Naley spoke in Apache, rapid and sharp. Maka answered, gesturing toward Clara, tapping the scar on his arm. The old woman's gaze ran over Clara from head to toe, taking in the dust-stained dress, the torn hem, the corset digging into flesh. Clara braced for a familiar curl of disgust. Naley reached out and patted her arm. She said something short, lips twitching. "She says you are big like the earth." Maka translated, amused. "Good. The earth carries us all." Clara blinked. "Is that a compliment?" "In this land, yes," he said. "Hungry people do not trust sharp bones." Naley led Clara to a small shelter made of branches and hides. Inside it was cool and shaded. She pointed to a pile of blankets in the corner, then to a pot of water, then to Clara's own sweat-darkened face. The meaning was clear. Alone for the first time since dawn, Clara sagged to her knees by the pot. Her reflection, warped and shimmering, looked back at her. Round face, flushed cheeks, hair escaping its pins, eyes raw from unshed tears. Her fingers fumbled with the hooks of her corset. Each one that came loose felt like undoing a chain. When the last gave way, she sucked in a breath so deep it almost hurt. She washed her face. The water was cold and clean. When she looked up again, she didn't look smaller, but she looked less trapped. Outside, the camp's rhythms unfolded. Children carried small bundles of wood without complaint. Women worked side by side, movements smooth and practiced. Men returned with a deer and rabbits and distributed the meat without argument. When Naley brought her a bowl of thick stew and a piece of fry bread, she hesitated, waiting for the criticism that always came with a second helping. It never came. The old woman simply nodded when she finished it. Elias had called this punishment. That night, lying on a pile of blankets under a roof of hides, listening to soft singing and the crackle of fires, Clara thought maybe for the first time in years, she was somewhere punishment couldn't find her. The tribe did not ease her into their life. They handed her tools and expected her to learn. Naley showed her how to grind corn on a flat stone. Clara's arms burned, her hands blistered. She kept going. Children giggled at her crooked Apache words and repeated them back until she got them right. Men watched her carry water, some skeptical, some amused. She tried to carry too much too soon. The clay pot felt solid in her hands when she filled it at the stream. Halfway back to camp, her fingers slipped. The pot hit rock and exploded into shards, water splashing her skirts. Shame rose like bile. She fell to her knees, grabbing at the pieces. A shard sliced her finger. Blood welled bright and hot. "I'm sorry," she muttered in English. "I'll fix it. I always break things. A shadow fell over her. She flinched, expecting a shout. Maka crouched down. He took her cut hand gently, turning it to study the wound. He crushed a leaf between his fingers and pressed the pulp to the cut. The stinging eased. "Leave the pot," he said. "I broke it," she said thickly. "It's my fault. I should have known I couldn't." "You carried too much too soon," he said. "Whoever handed you that pot made the mistake, not you." He unhooked a small gourd from his belt and put it in her uninjured hand. "Start with what you can carry," he said, "not what proves something to people who don't see you." "It'll take 10 trips, she whispered. "Then you will walk 10 times, he said. "Your strength will grow, not your shame." His calm certainty did something to her that anger never had. She nodded, wiped her eyes with the back of her wrist, and went back to the stream. By the 5th trip, her arms shook. By the 10th, they still shook, but pride threaded the fatigue. No one laughed. Naley met her at the shelter door and said something approving that needed no translation. Days blurred into weeks. She woke with the sun, fetched water, ground corn, gathered wood. Her shoulders thickened, her back strengthened. Her hands found plants the old Clara wouldn't have looked twice at. Leaves that cooled fevers, roots that calmed bellies, flowers that numbed pain. Maka took her along the ridges, pointing out trails only he seemed to see. "Here," he said once, kneeling to show her a plant with delicate white flowers. "Good for cleaning wounds." "Yarrow," she said. "My grandmother used that." "Your grandmother was wise," he replied. "Your father, less. You don't even know him," she said. "I've heard him," Maka said simply. One evening he led her up to a ledge that overlooked the whole valley. The setting sun painted the cliffs in deep reds and golds. Smoke curled from the shelters below. The creek caught the light and turned it into a streak of silver. "It's beautiful," she said. "It is home," he answered. He took a small flute from his belt and ran his fingers over the carvings. "My father made this," he said. He played when the nights were long. He raised it to his lips and played. The tune was simple and low. It slid into the cracks in her chest and filled them. He played of empty mesas and sudden rain, of long walks and small fires and hands held in the dark. When he finished, silence settled between them. "It's lovely," she whispered. "Like you," he said. Her laugh came out sharp and defensive. "Don't," she said. "Don't say that, not as a joke." He frowned. "Joke? No one calls me that unless they're about to make a fool of me," she muttered. "I know what I look like." "What do you see?" he asked. "A woman who doesn't fit into catalog dresses," she said. "A burden, a disappointment, a reminder my father never lets me forget. When I look at you," he said, "I see the girl who tore her own blanket to bandage an enemy. I see hands that have learned our herbs faster than most. I see a back strong enough to carry Taza away from the fire when he fell last week." She stared at him. The memory of grabbing the little boy before his face hit the coals had blurred under the adrenaline. The blister on her own arm had barely registered. "I see a woman," he went on, "whose body is made to carry life, whose heart is made to carry other people's pain and not break, whose mind is sharp enough to see the spaces between two worlds." She swallowed hard. "You don't see too much," she whispered. "I see enough," he said softly, "and I want all of it." The words hung in the cooling air. He didn't reach for her. He didn't demand. He simply stated it like a fact, like the shape of the hills. Something fluttered in her chest, fragile and fierce. Winter's first bite came early that year. Scouts rode farther, watching for soldiers and settlers. One morning, a young man burst into camp, breathless, speaking quickly. Maka listened, his face tightening. He looked for Clara as soon as the scout finished. "Your father comes," he said, "with soldiers." Her stomach plunged. "Why?" she asked. "He got rid of me. That's what he wanted. Men like him do not like to lose what they think belongs to them," Maka said. "Maybe he fears what the town says. Maybe he fears the story that is being told without him." "What will you do?" she whispered. "We will meet them at the valley mouth," he said. "We do not hide, but we will not let them walk into our home." He hesitated. "If you wish to go with him, say so. We will not hold you." Her first instinct was to picture the ranch, the sagging porch, the smell of dust and stale whiskey, the rooms where she'd never been able to sit without feeling she took up too much space. "I'd rather sleep in the dirt here than on a feather bed there," she said. "My place is here, with you." Relief softened his features. He touched her cheek lightly. "Then we will stand together," he said. At the valley mouth, the air felt brittle. The Apache riders waited in a loose line. Clara sat on a horse between Naley and Maka, her shoulders tight. The blue coats came first. Lieutenant Harlan rode at their head. Behind him, Elias Thompson hunched in his saddle, coat buttoned too tight, hat pulled low. "Clara," he called when they drew close enough. "Thank God, girl. You're alive." She felt Naley snort beside her. "I was alive when you left me at the fort," she said. "You didn't seem much concerned." "I was angry," he said. "I said things I didn't mean. You've had your adventure. Now you're coming home." "She already is home," Maka said. Elias shot him a look of pure contempt. "I didn't ask you. You stole her." "I came when she called," Maka replied. "You tried to sell her." "It was an arrangement," Elias snapped. "She's always been ungrateful. I fed you, clothed you. You fed me words that cut deeper than hunger," Clara said. "You clothed me in shame. And when you had nothing left to sell, you looked at me and saw coin." Harlan shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Thompson, your daughter's an adult," he said. "I can't drag her anywhere she doesn't want to go." "She's not in her right mind," Elias insisted. "These people have twisted her head. She's always been impressionable, soft. Look at her." Harlan did. Clara sat straight in the saddle, her hair braided Apache style, her skin darkened by the same sun that had always burned her. But she held herself differently now. No folding in, no flinching. "I see a woman who knows what she wants," the lieutenant said slowly. Elias's mouth twisted. You'd take the word of a man who sneaks around people's ranches, he snarled, jerking his chin at Maka. A savage? You remember the night he bled in our yard? Clara asked quietly. Because I do. He remembers the girl who helped. Do you? Elias's hand moved toward his coat. Harlan's horse shifted, blocking him partly, but not enough. Don't, Clara warned. You're my daughter, Elias said, eyes wild. I won't let him keep you like some trophy. His hand came out with a pistol. Naley swore. Harlan shouted. Warriors tensed. The shot roared across the clearing. Maka twisted, but the bullet wasn't aimed at him after all. It struck Taza, the teenage boy beside him, in the shoulder. He dropped with a cry, dust puffing around him. The world tilted. Warriors surged forward, weapons raised. Harlan yanked his gun out, eyes wide. Elias stared at his own hand, horror dawning. Stop, Maka roared. His voice cut through the chaos like a whip crack. No more blood. The warriors froze, caught between rage and obedience. Harlan, breathing hard, pointed his gun squarely at Elias. Drop it, he snapped. Elias's fingers opened. The pistol hit the ground. Clara was already off her horse, dropping to her knees beside Taza. Blood soaked his sleeve. His face was gray. It's all right, she said, forcing her voice steady. You're all right. Her hands moved without thinking, guided by months of Naley's scolding. Pressure, clean cloth, yarrow leaves crushed and packed, spiderweb pressed to hold it all. Wrapped tight. Taza whimpered. She cupped his cheek with her clean hand. Stay with me, she murmured. You're too stubborn to die. Naley knelt on the other side, helping tie the bandage. Good, she grunted. You learned well. Maka's chest rose and fell like he'd run for miles. He walked to Elias's horse. You aimed at me, he said. You struck a boy instead. That is who you are. Elias licked his dry lips. I didn't mean. You meant to control with fear, Maka said. My people will kill you for that if you stay. He glanced at Harlan. Take him. Harlan's jaw locked. Mr. Thompson, you're under arrest, he said. For shooting an unarmed youth and causing mayhem in a peace meeting. You'll come with us. Elias twisted toward Clara. Say something, he pleaded. Help me. I'm your father. She looked up from Taza. Blood streaked her hands. You're the man who pulled a gun on the only people who have ever treated me like I wasn't broken, she said quietly. Whatever happens to you now is your own doing. Harlan's men bound Elias's hands and led him away. He shouted until his voice cracked. No one answered. When the soldiers were gone, the valley mouth fell silent. The wind rustled the scrub. A hawk cried overhead. Maka knelt beside Clara. You were steady, he said, when everyone else lost their heads. I almost lost you, she whispered. Her voice shook now the danger had passed. My own father would have killed you. He took her bloody hands in his, heedless of the mess. Some men would rather destroy what they can't control than let it walk away, he said. He tried. He failed. All my life I believed him, she said. When he said I wasn't worth anything. When he said no man would want me unless he was desperate or cruel. Maka's thumbs brushed the backs of her fingers. I want you, he said. No drama. No hesitation. Not as payment, not as proof, as wife, if you will. As partner, if you won't. As the woman who shares my fire and my fights. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Look at me, she said, almost laughing through it. Really look. I have been, he said simply. Since the night you stood between me and your father's hate with only a bucket and shaking hands. Spring found the valley scattered with wildflowers and new grass. By then, Clara answered more often to Nalani, the name Naley had given her. Because your eyes hold the sky, the old woman said. Nalani moved through camp with a confidence the girl from Dry Creek had never known. Children ran to her with scraped knees and secrets. Women asked her advice. Men nodded to her, not out of politeness but respect. In winter, under a sky thick with stars, elders blessed her and Maka's union with songs and smoke and joined hands. No papers, no ink, no signatures, only vows spoken in two tongues and sealed with the simple fact that neither of them walked away. Years later, a slender woman with city hands and ink-stained fingers rode into the valley with a notebook. Miss Thompson? She asked in careful English, then corrected herself when Naley barked her new name. Nalani, I'm Margaret Fulton from the Boston Herald. I've come about your story. My story? Nalani wiped her hands on her skirt, amused. This valley is full of stories, why mine? Back east, they say a rancher's daughter was given to an Apache as punishment, Margaret said. They say he took her captive, and she stayed. Nalani huffed a laugh. They like that version better, she said. Makes it sound like I had no say and he had no heart. I'd like the real version, Margaret said quietly, if you're willing. Nalani glanced toward the ridge where she'd once tied a tattered shawl in a secret knot, toward Maka, who was standing with Taza, now grown and scarred but alive, fixing a bridle. The real story, she said, is that a girl made one good choice when she thought she had none. She gave water to a boy she was told to fear. Years later, when everyone she knew turned their backs, she reached out to that same choice, and the boy she saved came back a man. Margaret's pen scratched. And he rescued you? She asked. Nalani smiled. I wasn't rescued from savages, she said. I was rescued from people who thought I didn't count as a person at all. She watched Maka look up and meet her gaze with that same steady warmth he'd had under the barn's shadow. And instead of dragging me away like a prize, she added, he did the one thing I never expected. What's that? Margaret asked. He asked what I wanted, Nalani said, and when I answered, he believed me. That evening, when the reporter slept by Nayli's fire, Nalani climbed the ridge with a strip of cloth in her pocket. The valley below glowed with small fires. Children laughed somewhere in the dark. A dog barked once. She tied the cloth to a branch, fingers moving through the old pattern. Over, under, twist, pull. The knot faced the empty sky. You calling for help again? Maka asked, joining her. She leaned into his warmth as he wrapped an arm around her. No, she said, just remembering the girl who thought no one would ever come when she called. He kissed her temple. A foolish girl, he said fondly. A foolish girl who turned out smarter than the whole town of Dry Creek, she replied. The knot fluttered in the night breeze, no longer a desperate signal, but a small flag for a life that had bent in a direction nobody in Dry Creek would have believed. Not even Clara Mae Thompson, especially not her father.